Hi, my name is Heather Zylstra, and I will be presenting a demonstration on how to wash your hands. The purpose of this is to teach you how to properly wash your hands and explain why and when it is important. In 1840s, Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis was the first doctor who made a correlation between the high mortality rate in his maternity ward and dirty hands. Although the mortality rate of his patients plummeted, the idea of hand washing was still widely rejected. In 1867, John Lister, a Scottish surgeon, he propelled the idea of sanitization of hands and surgical equipment in order to reduce infection. Hand washing became recognized as instrumental in keeping the patient safe. However, the first national hand hygiene guidelines were not published until the 1980s. That's right, I said the first national hand washing guidelines were not published until 1980. After this presentation, you will be able to practice the skill and become proficient at hand washing. My credibility related to this topic of being in the nursing field, and so I recognize the importance of hand washing. It is the first skill learned in nursing and highly emphasized as the most important part of nursing. It is highly important to know how to properly wash your hands to reduce risk of infection and disease for yourself and others that you encounter. Why should you wash your hands? When should you wash your hands? And lastly, how is hand washing properly done? We will discuss all these topics in this presentation. So let's get started. What's the big deal about hand washing anyway? Hand washing is the best way to prevent the spread of germs. Germs can spread from touching surfaces or by touching people. For example, if you're sick and then you touch your nose or your mouth and then you shake someone's hand, they could very likely become sick themselves. Food can also be contaminated by unwashed hands from someone carrying germs. And this is super important because having dirty hands carrying germs and then touching food, preparing food, and letting somebody ingest that can be a severe issue. It can cause disease and other problems. Touching bacteria, which is invisible to the eye, can lead to infection, disease, and even death. According to Black, Laxminarian, Temmerman, and Walker, hygiene promotion is the most cost-effective health action to reduce disease. So now that we know why it's important to wash your hands, I'm going to tell you when it is important to wash your hands. How many times do you wash your hands in a day? You might wash your hands a couple times a day, 50 times a day, 100 times a day, or if you're like me, probably 1,000 times a day. As a nurse, I wash my hands incessantly. Most people are aware that they do need to wash their hands after using the restroom, but do you know what other times call for a proper hand washing? Before and after handling food, like discussed earlier, super important. Whether you're eating the food or cooking the food, it is always important to wash your hands around food. Also, prior to and after caring for someone who is ill is crucial. Washing hands after using the restroom, as previously stated, also very important. Hand washing should also be done after touching trash, handling pets, blowing your nose, coughing, sneezing, or if they're just visibly dirty from dirt, food, anything. Wash your hands. According to Curtis and Cairncross, researchers estimate that if everyone continually, routinely washed their hands, 1 million deaths a year could be prevented. In addition to knowing when and why we wash our hands, we must most importantly know how to wash our hands. Washing your hands is easy Anyone can do it. And here I'm going to demonstrate how. Before beginning the actual hand washing process, you'll want to make sure that you have all your essentials. First of all, make sure you have some soap. Also, you're going to need paper towels or a clean towel. And lastly, most importantly, running water. There's no evidence that antibacterial soaps are more effective than plain soap for preventing infection under most circumstances in the home or in public places. So let's begin this process. How do we wash our hands? Here we go. First, you're going to want to turn on clean, running water to wet your hands. Thoroughly wet your hands under the water. We're not in a rush here. You want to make sure they're completely wet. That way, when you add the soap, it'll lather into suds. Next, you're going to apply hand soap. Lather your hands in between fingers, back of the hand, and under your fingernails. Here you can see me just lathering the soap, getting in between the fingers, inside the fingers, and also in back of the hand. Gotta get the thumbs. And also be sure you get those fingernails. You're gonna scratch in a circular motion or up and down to get some soap underneath the fingernails, because we do tend to hold a lot of bacteria in there. So it is important to wash under your nails. Make sure that you scrub your hands for 20 seconds or more. Often it's recommended to sing happy birthday from beginning to end 2 times in a row. So if you don't know how the happy birthday song, which I'm sure you do, but if you don't, learn the song. It's super helpful. And you can wash your hands more than 20 seconds. That's definitely okay. You just don't want to wash them less than 20 seconds because it won't be as effective. So as you can see, my hands are completely lathered in soap. And we're just going to rinse our hands off. Be sure not to touch the sink or anything surrounding the sink immediately after washing your hands and rinsing the soap, because then your hands will just be contaminated again. So try and be careful and just make sure you get all the soap off of your hands. And then you're going to get a paper towel or your towel or hair dry, however you want to do it. But if you do use a paper towel or a towel, you're going to want to pat your hands. Don't aggressively, viciously scrub that water off. It just takes a few pats and your hands will be dry. You don't want to irritate the skin. If you're washing your hands often, it will eventually irritate it. Or can anyways. I know for my hands it does. So you pat your hands dry, and once they're completely dry, you can use that towel or paper towel to turn off the water. Luckily nowadays, there's a lot of automatic sinks in public restrooms, which is super helpful. It makes it easy to turn off the water. You don't have to touch anything. And now you're an expert in all things hand washing. Look at those hands. In conclusion, washing our hands is not always at the forefront of our minds. It wasn't something I consciously thought of all the time before I became a nurse. But it is something we do when we know our hands are dirty, but we must be more proactive in protecting against things that we cannot see, germs. Especially now with COVID and all these other diseases coming out, monkeypox. You really want to be proactive in preventing these. Now you have the knowledge of why we wash our hands, when we wash our hands, and how to do so correctly. Remember, your life is in your hands. Wash them properly. Thank you so much.